Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 50th episode of Intentional Guy. I'm here today with my wife, Amber. This is her first time being on the podcast with me. And we are here with Tabatha Perry. Tabatha was on our show before. Tabatha, thank you so much for being on here again today. It's a great honor to have you back with us.
Well, likewise, and to celebrate your 50th podcast and having Amber on here. I mean, this is a good day for you.
It's a great day. It's been a great year, actually.
Yes.
God has been very good.
Yes.
So, well, you were on a couple months ago, and actually, so when I filmed this, it was a month before it aired, came on, and it's important to share that because of some of the dynamics that took place in that time period. What I'm so excited about the podcast Intentional Guy has, as I go back through it chronologically shows my journey too, because God has grown me so much through this. It's been amazing to sit back and watch. But Tabatha, you were very, let's just put it away. God anointed that moment in time, that day that you were on the show. And that was the message God needed me to hear. I don't know if he needed anybody else out there to hear that, but he needed me to hear that. So for our guests, so you know what we're talking about, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to play it's a 2-minute clip from that conversation that we had.
Another thing as a husband to do is to pray with her and just pray over her. I love hearing my husband's heart when he prays over me, because he says things to God that he doesn't say to me, but I needed to hear them. And so praying over your wife and just together as a unit, right? Because you are a partnership. It's just another idea.
You just smacked me across the face with that one, because the hardest thing I have is praying with my wife. I don't know why, but she has told me it's the best thing that I do with her. But the enemy has my ear, and I'm ashamed to say it, but it's hard for me to do. And that has nothing to do on her, but all on me, because I have that battle, the enemy, because I know the enemy doesn't want me to pray with my wife, because that will draw us closer to each other, right? But I just have that fear, and I think that's a key word. We can't live in fear, because fear keeps us from doing the things that God wants us to do. And so you're really convicting me here, because
there was a word that you needed to hear, Michael. And here's the thing. It is hard, but you have shared that you have done hard things. You have. And so this can just be another hard thing that you come up with a battle plan for, right? Like come up with a strategy, whether it's praying with her, whatever, if it's in the morning or evening, wherever you feel strongest, that you have like the most grit, that you can push through whatever those thoughts are that are preventing you from doing it. And don't feel like it has to be a 10-minute prayer. Literally do like, Lord, thank you. Amen. Like give yourself just a little baby prayer and start off with that. And then the next day, maybe make it a little bit longer. But you can do hard things, and your wife has asked you for this, and God will bless it. And I promise you, it's going to get easier and easier.
As we went on in that, we sat down and we I don't know if you remember this, but we talked about what's the strategy that you can do. And you're like, you could, one, she's like, is your wife home now? She's ready to take it on right now. We were like, let's do this right now.
I got a girl, not a procrastinator.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I when you look at the video, I was like a deer in headlights, like, and probably part of she's at work, but we talked about a plan. And, after that show aired, after we recorded it, it was another month before it actually was aired. We had something going on in our life with some friendships that were hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard experience.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife at work that day just had a bad experience with that. She came home, and I remember when she walked in, she was shaken, and I don't know if you remember that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, God is so amazing. I just grabbed her. We were in the kitchen. I pulled her in, and I prayed in her ear. And I prayed just a short, solemn prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I got done and I looked at her, the tears in her eyes, but the way she looked back at me, because I had all those fears, first off. But I didn't tell her about this episode. I didn't tell her anything about this, actually. In the episode, you talk about how to, find a time that's good. So set a time on your phone that is a good time. So I thought 9:00. 9:00 at night's good because that's when my wife takes her Benadryl and then goes to bed. So I got a short little bit of window there to pray with her, right? So I set my alarm for 9 p.m. Well, so happens, timing's everything. It was a Friday night. We're not home. We're out with some friends. Next thing you know, my alarm goes off on my phone, and it's sitting there, and I'm like, and I'm trying to turn. First off, I've not even told her any of this, and my friend sees my phone. I click it, and he's like, I was embarrassed. He's like, they were like, did that say play with your wife? You set alarm for that, and I was like, what? No. And I'm just like, change subject, went on. We get in the car, and I remember my wife looking at me going, what was the alarm about on your phone?
Oh,
And I said, I had set an alarm to pray with you at 9:00. And I remember, I think my voice was shaking when I said that. And I remember, do you remember your reaction? I do. Because your reaction was, you're like, really?
Yes.
You did that for me? You wanted to do that?
Because you were making an effort.
Yeah. And just a little bit more of those lies started kind of leaving, It was later on. I was talking to a friend. We were at dinner or something, and I was talking about this episode, and we were discussing this. And Amber, I remember she asked me, or did you watch this, or did you listen to the show?
No, I listened to the show, and I came home.
That's
we were
right.
Grilling out, and we were sitting on the back patio, and I said, "Hey, so I listened to one of your episodes on the way home today."
And I want to tell you, that was the first episode I think you listened to the whole thing through.
It was the first one that I
imagine that God had her pick Tabatha Perry. Out of all the ones she could have selected, that was the one that she selected. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Right. No, so I just was like, you talked about me in that episode, about praying with me. He was like, well, what did you think? I was like, well, it was a great episode, and I want to pray with you,
and my wife's like you, like that day that you don't procrastinate. My wife is not a procrastinator.
No.
As she said, so my wife's like, so what is it? What is it that we can do to make this happen? She's like, is there something I'm doing? And like I said, it's not about her. It was my fear, not her fear. And we came up with, at 9:00. That's the perfect time for us to pray, to be alone together and have that time. And that was a month ago, right? Or 2?
Slightly over a month ago.
So about a month and a half ago now. And we started praying together at night at 9:00. The very first night that we did it, something that touched my heart more than anything else was when Amber looked at me and said, we only have 29 more times before it becomes a habit, and it just made me, I can't tell you, we have missed only one time, Tabatha. We have only missed one time. And I forget why we missed.
Well, we missed two. One time we were on vacation. We were out of our normal. We had been to an amusement park all day, and we died when we, like, our heads hit the floor. So we were gone. But then the second time you were involved in work, and I just didn't pray with you. But
Yes.
I'll let you.
Well, she came in. Well, the first time we both said when that happened, the hardest part for me is, and we talked about, I don't know what you remember, but I come from a legalistic background where, if you forget, we throw the baby out with the dishwater,
It's
right?
just done,
Because
right,
it's
yeah.
like, we're done. I'm a failure. I can't do this. We're not going to do it. But we didn't do that. And we're like, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
That's so good.
We're going to do it. We'll do it. I think what we did then was we prayed right then. We missed another day. So she's right. There was 2 times. And I was in here swamped with work. I don't usually work at night, but we had something happen. I was swamped at work. And she came in and she said, you felt the Lord leading?
I felt a nudge of, I was like, hey, do you want to pray real quick? And he's like, I'm busy. Give me just a second. But like, I needed to go to bed. And I felt a nudge to just pray over him really quickly.
Well, we didn't even talk about praying yet.
No, I guess we didn't. Because I guess I was like, well, I'm going to go
because
to bed.
that was in your head.
Yes.
She has many of those conversations.
Lots of those in my head.
Oh, me too. Those are always fun conversations.
Yes. And then when you join in and, you're like, you don't remember that? So I did feel a nudge to pray with him, and I didn't obey it. And I went to bed, and
I was in here working.
Was a little frustrated.
And I think it was 11 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
It was real late. And I realized we haven't prayed. And I was just like, I felt defeated. And I was like, no, that's the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in the room and she was sound asleep. So I just laid my hands on her. And it's so cute too, because her cat came in and laid its paw right on top of my hand. And so me and the cat prayed over my wife.
Well, it sounds like she prayed over you and you prayed over her. So technically,
yes,
you guys did pray.
Yes.
Well, what I did once I was done praying, I went back in and I text her so that in the morning she would see it. And what was the text say?
I should never let work come between something that's so important to us. I came in and I prayed over you while you were sleeping.
Yeah. Me and Boo, mm-hmm. Han and Paul prayed for you.
Right.
And I remember when she got that, she woke me up before she left, hugged me, kissed me, thanked me for that. And that meant so much to her,
mm-hmm.
And the neat thing is, Tabatha, is we have seen a lot of answered prayer in our family.
Yes.
Praying together. But what I will not ever trade now is how my wife looks at me. Mm. The intimacy that we've just in that one step of obedience of praying together has changed so much for us, which I'm shocked and I'm not shocked, but I am, because to think that something, and I'm not trying to spiritualize our relationship. That's not my point to everybody. My point is, it was something I felt God telling me to do, nudging me to do, but I was letting fear overtake me because I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to pray for my wife, that my wife, she knows me better than anybody else. Right. But we tend to let the distractions in life take over. And I love it because no matter what, I have a bad back, my back went out. And there were several times we just prayed with me laid out on the couch. Mm-hmm. And I love my wife. I'm in the midst of pain, but it's 9 o'clock. And she comes and she holds my hand. And my wife doesn't like to pray. I mean, she likes to pray, but she doesn't like to pray out loud. But she is the best prayer warrior I have ever heard. Her prayers melt my heart. And I just tell you how she looks at me now. I wouldn't trade, because it's so vulnerable that was a vulnerable thing for us to get through and do. And I didn't realize that.
Wow.
And it just, I mean, look how she's looking at me. I love that.
Well, can I ask a question? I'm curious, Amber, how have you looked at him differently now? Like, what do you see in him that's different?
I think one of the biggest things is that I think in Mike's healing journey, he didn't always feel like he was the man of the house, the head of the house. We have 2 children, we have a grandbaby, and I'm a fixer. I'm a mom, a wife. I work. Just got to get things done, And so I think, over the years and the hustle and bustle, like I just get things done, And so I think he sometimes felt like he wasn't equipped to be the man, which I certainly felt like he always was, but he needed to feel that. And I think in his journey of healing, he's really taken on that role very strongly. And I'm super proud of that. Like every day I look at him, and there's been a couple times I've come home from work and I'm just like, I'm so proud of you. Like I'm proud of who you are and what you're doing. And, that you to make an effort to change something is hard, especially when we're not 20 years old. And so these are habits and things that we have had for so long that when you make an effort to do something to change it, it's amazing, And so when I look at him, it's because I'm super proud of him and I'm super happy with where we are and in our life. And so that's probably the biggest thing.
And that's what I feel, it's kind of puffed me up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think we have a cat that's determined to be in our show today. So it is what it is. Can you still hear an earpiece?
I can.
But one of the main things I think for me has been, if I can do this, I most certainly can do other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I see myself where I'm stepping forward more now and taking on other roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she said it best, she had to feel often alone in our relationship, because in so many ways I was disconnected. When you don't feel you're worthy or that you're in that role, there's a disconnect, right? And I think this time together helped us to connect in us in an because that's intimate, praying with each other. It's vulnerable, but also then it's spiritual, because now the Holy Spirit that's in me and her, we're connecting the 3 of us together. And it's amazing during the day. There's just so many times that I'll pray for her. And then there's so many times that I know she's praying for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's not just about the prayer. It's about, it's silly. It's really silly, but I feel that role, I'm taking on that role now of being the spiritual leader of my family. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing where she desires that. And I'm addicted to how my wife looks at me now. I love that, and I want to continue that. And so who knew that in that journey, because that episode we did was with you was This Is Your Life. And this is the payoff to that, to being intentional in doing and obeying and following through with it, So
one thing I noticed since we've been praying together is now we notice, because the enemy does not like it one bit, and tries very hard to stop it from happening. There's always something going on or whatever. But I think we recognize that now more than we ever have. And so sometimes just the other night, I was so grouchy and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. That was a night. It was a very quick little prayer. Like we had like hit our 5 topics, our children and, and our health. And, I went to bed and then I prayed again and I'm like, Lord, I don't know why I'm so snappy with him. Like I don't know what's going on, but please just change my attitude tomorrow, and then, he did. But then a few days later, Mike was
I was in mine.
Grouchy. And I was like, is it me? Like, have I done something? He's like, no, I don't even know what is going on right now. I was like, well, I do, because the enemy doesn't like this, doesn't like that, we're getting along. And,
so the enemy, he's getting those moments,
yes,
but we're not letting him have our day.
Right.
Love that.
And we're seeing it for what it is. And we will immediately now go to the other person and we will correct it. We will, because in no way do I want her to think it's her, because it's not her. And in no way does she want to think it's me.
Right.
It's the enemy doesn't like where we're at in this life, because now what's the next stage for us? I don't know what the next stage is, but I know that God has plans for us.
Yes.
And so now we're just getting to that next stage of trying to figure it all out, to be honest. So, but
fun stage to be in. Scary too. But the cool thing is you guys are doing it together. You're unified, and you not only have language together to speak to each other, but like language with the Lord and the Holy Spirit, which just makes you even more powerful.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Tabatha, are you shocked that this is the results, or what are your thoughts and everything on that?
Well,
what we tell you.
We definitely did not start out the podcast to talk about prayer. So it was a total Holy Spirit movement to have that conversation. And the results, like I'm so honored to know you guys and see this and understand how impactful it's been, because God, like one moment with the Lord can change everything. And that doesn't happen all the time. It really doesn't. I wish it would. But it is such a privilege to be able to see it happen with you too. And to truly see, Amber, the way that you look at him now, and Michael, like how you just, like you said, you puff up and you are in the roles that God created you to be, as the man and as the wife, both strong and powerful, but in very different ways, and then coming together to honor the Lord and to communicate with him. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And so with this being our 50th episode, God's really been working on me on the podcast, and I have to slow down because I'm excited. I'm past excited. I'm and it's like, and in the last week, I have felt God say, okay, slow down. Let me guide you.
Right.
Let me show you what I want from you and where we're going. And we're getting ready so January, I put a 3-day challenge up on my website with the prayer. And we're going to start off with that, but we're going to, January is the second week in January, we're going to start off and do a 30-day thing that leads up to Valentine's Day, but we're going to do a 30-day challenge for men, basically. And part of it is putting these things up there. What are some of the distractions in our life? What is it? We love our wife. Are we showing that we love our wife? What are some of the things that we can do? I have a really good friend of mine during this same time, Tabatha, that me and you had this conversation, that sat down with me and said, hey, can I have a conversation with you? And I have a whole podcast that me and him we'll be airing that. And it's something that he told me that I was doing. I could have taken it 2 ways. I could have been mad and angry, or I could have listened. And what he said was just another piece of that puzzle,
Mhm.
like what you gave me, that now here we go. And it changed me as a husband.
Mhm.
And iron sharpens iron, right? So in January, we're going to be on the podcast really striving to be more intentional in what should be one of the most important relationships in our life is our wife. Because I hear so many people talking, going through divorce, going through the situation, and they fail to realize what they have until the suitcase is packed and at the door. And the truth is, by the time she's packed the suitcase, it's done.
Right.
She's done. And to not that God can't undo that,
Right.
but wouldn't it be so much better to not get to that place and to be, I see my wife now. And I don't know if people listening get that, but I see her spirit. I see who she is now. And she's so beautiful. She's so beautiful. And I was missing that because I was into all the distractions around me. So now we haven't got to it yet, but we're working on it. I have goals for me. I have goals for my podcast. I have goals for work and all this. But I realize we don't have goals together. We have a prayer list that we have. And by the way, I want to say one of the best advice you gave me too was to not put limits on my prayer, our prayer together. If it's short prayer, it's a short prayer. If it's a long prayer, it's a long prayer. But it's about the quality time. And so some of our best prayers have been the short ones. Have been the short prayers. And then some of the times that I'm telling you, I am married to a prayer warrior. She's like, I'm just going to say a short prayer. Let me tell you, the prayer was so powerful. And she got done. She was like, I'm so sorry that wasn't short. I'm like, but it was powerful. It was powerful. And I'm so proud of her. And then Tabatha, to hear my wife on the phone with someone and say, can I pray with you for a minute? That doesn't happen, but it happens now. It happens because she's growing, because we're growing together. So the next step in our relationship, and I need your help because I procrastinate, is us sitting down, and we need to have goals together. What are some goals that we can achieve, short term and long term? We know our long term. I think we're missing some short term goals.
Yeah.
That will help us to keep a little bit more focused, but also bring that together. But Tabatha is a life coach, and this is what she does. So I'm just going to ask you, one, we're going to put a plug in for you today, because I really recommend that if people have some chaos in their life, some things happen in their life, I think you're really good at helping devise that plan and to set that in motion. And I know that you did with me. And one thing is, I also felt the power of God in what you were saying. You weren't saying it just because this is something that you say to everybody. You were talking to me as an individual, and we weren't on a podcast anymore at that moment in time. You're like, okay, Michael, let's.
No, she was sitting at the table with you.
Yes.
Right.
And a lot of people today, going to a counselor now since COVID, there's more people going to life coaches and things like that. So I want to put that plug in for Tabatha. Would be a great person to hash some of those things out. I've been on her website. She's got some great tools there, some great courses and things like that you can do too, that will help walk through that. But sitting here with us, not to take up too much more of your time, but because one was, I want to have you on the show just to rejoice in what happened. I wanted you to see the fruits of your labor. But I also want to ask you too, do you feel anything that God's telling you that you want to lay on lay on to us today as we're talking.
I sure do. As soon as you started talking about your goals together, oh man, that's something that my husband and I we're still trying to figure out, right? But the word that came to mind was fun. To have a goal of fun things to do together, whether it's once a week, once a month, but to allow yourselves to truly just laugh and be joyful and just to put all your cares aside and just to enjoy one another and have that be a goal.
Yeah. And I like that because
Mm-hmm.
you can get so wrapped up in
the daily,
the day-to-day mundane things. And I want to protect what we have right now.
Right.
Because now that I know what we can have, we can easily slip back to where we were. And so I want to protect that, and I want to grow. I want to grow even more. I didn't even think I could fall in love with her more, and I was so wrong. And I can't wait to see what another year, how our life can be if we're intentional in doing that. And I love that, is putting down a goal of something where we enjoy that time together and something that gets us maybe out of the house.
Yeah.
And where just the two of us are together. So we're going to work on that.
Yes.
And we're going to work on our goals.
Yes.
Too, as a couple. So, but Tabatha, I want to thank you again for being on this episode 50. I started this in April 50. And 50 we've had some amazing guests on here, some amazing people who have been on here. In a year, I've written a book on my life story that's out there. On my podcast, like I said, and next month we're getting ready to start this men's quest for 30 days that leads up to Valentine's. And I have a free book available called Intentional Man for download. So they just go to the website there and they can have that. And it's been an amazing journey, because when I started this journey, I was half the man I am today. And really half. I've lost 110 pounds since last November.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
There's been so many things happen in our life. A book's come out. We've had a grandbaby.
I lost half of myself.
She's lost 100 and we've lost how much together?
About 230
pounds altogether.
235 between the two of us.
Internally and externally. Amazing.
And during Hurricane Sally, what got it started was we had a sewer truck. Right after Hurricane Sally, a tree went through our house, and a sewer truck, of all things, it's massive. It's a tanker truck. Went to pass us as we were turning onto our street and ran over the top of us.
Rolled over on top of our car.
Somehow God turned the vehicle, because had it not shifted, I would have died. It would have crushed me. And I mean, I could feel the tank of the truck on my back. That's where it was. We didn't know if it was a propane tank. We didn't have any idea what kind of tanker it was. And the enemy meant that to destroy us, and almost did. Because of Hurricane Sally came through, you couldn't get to a doctor hardly. A doctor didn't want to touch me without an MRI, and all the MRIs had gotten flooded in the area. So it was 2 months before I got an MRI. I went 2 months with hardly any sleep. And you know how that will make you go crazy. But then I had PTSD. I didn't know what flashbacks were. I did not realize what flashbacks were. And I mean, I would be standing there, all of a sudden I would see the truck falling on me and I would freak out. My back wasn't moving, and the enemy wanted to destroy us. And in the midst of that,
you couldn't work. We were financially,
just everything.
Yes.
We were financially a wreck. We've been financially a wreck our whole marriage, but We had gone through the Dave Ramsey, and we
Twice.
got so discouraged with the Dave Ramsey course
Mhm.
because we're like,
The first
that's
time
not
around.
realistic. We can't,
Right.
and we would leave the video. So we went and did it again. And we were like, no, we're going to do it. And we started tithing. We started doing it. So the enemy
We
was
trust the
trying to take
process.
us out with a
Yes.
car wreck. And with my back, I and all the stuff that took place. But God saw that opportunity to heal us.
Mhm.
I thought I was broken more, but I wasn't. I got to a good godly counselor. A friend of mine got me in touch with this godly counselor who drove an hour and a half to see me because the bridges were down.
Right. The bridges were
This
closed.
woman drove an hour and a half to see me. And she started working with me. She saw immediately what was going on. I was afraid they were going to Baker Act me, whatever. I was crazy. And she's like, let's put the fire out. But then this woman saw in the midst of my PTSD that there was more. And this was 2 years ago. And I never dealt with a sexual abuse that took place when I was a child. And the next thing you know, I'm finding healing. I'm finding forgiveness. I'm growing. I'm writing a journal, and I end up writing a book about this. My family doesn't even know this situation until they read it in the book. But God he literally took ashes.
Yes.
And he made beauty out of it. He took what the enemy was trying to wipe us out with, and our life is changed. Today, we're debt-free. We're sitting here. We are debt-free. And that almost gets me because I never thought we couldn't see what God could see back then.
Yeah.
Right? Now, of course, if I saw the roadmap that God was going to take to get us there, I might have said, I pass, right? But God's way, I'm learning that God's ways are not our ways.
Right.
And what God requires from me is to be obedient. And so that's what happened that day, that when I talked to you on there, was God was talking to me through you. And all I had to do was be obedient to what he was calling me to do. And I think that's what a lot of people lack. And that's where, when God brought me the intentional guy from, was because, Mike, you've gone walking around in a fog your whole life, basically, because you've let the worst circumstances in your life define who you are. Now let me define who you are. And I'm learning what that means. I'm in my 50s, but I'm learning. And Tabatha is so tremendous. And I'm still learning. I want you to know that trying to figure out my identity and how God sees me. It's hard to wrap your head around, but you don't have to wrap your head around it. God will do it for you. And I'm learning I have to just be patient, have to be loving, have to be kind. I have to sit back. I just have to obey. I have to be present in my marriage. I have to turn off the TV. I have to put my phone down. Now I try to make sure my work is done before my wife gets home, so that her time and my time is together. And so it's being intentional. And I can't tell you all this within 2 years. We went from broken to people who, I don't know. I don't have a word to describe us. But
I think the thing that really was also beneficial with us is we both had a desire to make it better. We didn't know what that looked like. We didn't know really. I know our daughter works with me, and one of our other coworkers was like, "Oh, your mom and Mikey are so cute." And my daughter said they weren't always this cute. Like
it's amazing we're married today.
It is amazing because we were ugly to each other. We fought ugly. We didn't fight fair. But I think after enough time, we both knew we didn't want to fail at this, and we both had a desire to make it better. And so we were willing, and open to hearing each other and figuring out what do we need to do to make this to where this is truly our best life, and so.
And how great is it to have a partner? I mean, I'm so thankful. How great is it to have a partner that wants to do life with me, who wants to be present with me? And not only do I see her, she sees me, and there's a lot of couple out there that have people that are just coexisting together. And I got a wife who has a desire, and I think she hit it. And you probably see this a lot. You can't help someone that doesn't want help.
Right.
And a lot of times people will probably come to someone like you wanting you to give them the answer and tell them what they need to do. But the thing is, you've got to be present first. You got to want it. You can't make someone want something.
Right.
And God's blessed me with that. I have someone that wants the same things and wants for us to prosper. I'm sorry. I'm so blessed. I love you. I love the joy that we have. And to think 50 episodes later that I thought Intentional Guy was to help other people, but it was really God was using it to help me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's just, it's great. And I thank you for being a part of that.
Yes.
And for obeying God and doing it. And I remember the night that she came home and she listened to the podcast and we had that conversation. I was scared. I'm going to tell you, I was scared because, and then I said, well, what episode? And she said, a Tabatha girl. And
And then the next question, I was like, well, do you talk about me in all your episodes? And he's like, well, you have to go listen to all my podcasts now. And so, so I do try as much as I can to listen to them,
and she's the best support I have out there. And it's great.
You guys are a great team. I can see it. And I'm excited to hear down the road what goals you guys decide to work on. And because you are an amazing team.
Well, it's life is amazing. And I hope that as my listeners are listening, that you understand is being intentional. It's about the choices we make.
Yeah.
And we can either, I've learned we can react or we can act. If I react to something, I'm going off of emotion and feeling, and emotion and feelings can lie to me.
Yes.
Right. But if I'm acting on something, that means I'm taking a pause usually, and I'm looking at the facts, and and now I'm seeing when that's thought, wait, that's a lie of the enemy. Is that coming from God? Is Jesus saying that to me?
Mm-hmm.
Or is the enemy speaking to me? And but because I'm not reacting, I'm acting to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the intentionality of being able to do that, and you can't do it overnight. You have to process that,
right,
and do that, every day. Get up and decide to be intentional, and and when we're not perfect at it, don't quit, but keep moving forward. And so I'm excited about January because I have a few guy friends who are actually, I said, I want you to do this with us. And then at the end of Valentine's, we're going to come back together and we're going to talk about those changes. So I've got a few guests who are coming on that's going to help us to be a little bit more intentional in that. And what does it look like to be a man in today's world? Because our world is really messed up, and the views of a man, and it's it's really hard. But even women have it's rough. But what I noticed through this is that my wife, she's been waiting for me to do this a long time. She wanted me to do this, so my fears were unwarranted. And I could have saved myself we could be so much further along, but we can't say what if, right? No. We stay with where we are today. So Tabatha, before we close, again, thank you for being on here.
Yes, thank you.
And I would like you, is there anything you'd like to say before we leave here today?
Well, again, congratulations on your 50th podcast. That is just
Thank
so,
you.
so exciting. And it is an honor to be a part of your journey. And I look forward to watching your journey and just being a part of your atmosphere, because you guys are just an incredible team.
Well, thank you. And it's amazing that God could take someone I never met before, and you didn't have a clue what kind of impact you had until a couple of weeks ago when I emailed you and told you what that impact was.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to show you that we don't know what God is doing, but you obey God. You said,
Right.
you said the stuff that you needed to say, and God honored it. And I and my wife are very grateful for that. And I want to reach out to we're going to put in the link to your website and all that too. If you're living in chaos, you're living for some guidance, you're looking for some stuff, I recommend Tabatha for sure, to be that person to maybe kind of help you get started on that journey with.
Yes.
So, but until next time, I want to just keep telling my listeners, keep being intentional. We'll talk to you again.